Question 1. In the context of a trenching project near a hospital, Mr. Ramirez, a licensed HVACR technician, is supervising the excavation of a 14-foot deep trench to install refrigerant lines. The soil is classified as Type C, and heavy rain has occurred the previous night. The site lacks adequate sloping or shielding. Mr. Ramirez notices water seeping into the trench but continues work to stay on schedule. What is the most appropriate action under these circumstances? A. Continue working but assign a spotter to monitor trench stability. B. Stop work and install a water removal system before continuing. C. Proceed with excavation while placing plywood sheeting for protection. D. Add more workers to complete the task quickly before further deterioration. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 29 CFR 1926.651 H requires control of water accumulation in trenches. Type C soil, the most unstable, combined with water infiltration, significantly increases the risk of collapse. Work must stop and water removed before resuming. Plywood and rushing do not meet OSHA protective requirements. Question 2. Based on the information, what minimum ladder requirements must be followed for safe access in a trench that is 5 feet wide and 11 feet deep? A. Ladder must extend at least 2 feet above trench edge and be within 50 feet of all workers. B. Ladder must extend 3 feet above trench edge and be no farther than 25 feet from any worker. C. Ladder must extend 1 foot above trench edge and be placed every 10 feet. D. Ladder must be flush with the edge and installed at every trench end regardless of length. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 29 CFR 1926.651 C2 mandates that ladders in trenches 4 feet or deeper must extend at least 3 feet above the trench edge and be located no more than 25 feet of lateral travel for workers. Anything less creates unsafe egress, especially in emergencies. Question 3. Through the lens of preventive excavation planning, Mr. Davis is tasked with leading a crew to install HVAC ductwork that involves trenching in an urban setting. He reviewed utility maps but did not contact 811 before excavation. A backhoe operator struck an unmarked electrical conduit, causing a power outage and minor injuries. What should have been Mr. Davis's initial step? A. Visually inspect the site and mark visible utility lines. B. Rely on utility maps provided by the City Planning Office. C. Contact 811 to have underground utilities marked before digging. D. Notify OSHA of potential buried utilities before beginning. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. The call before you dig requirement is enforced nationwide under 14 ICAR S 198.37 and OSHA 1926.651. B. Contacting 811 ensures utility location services are dispatched to mark underground lines. Maps alone are not sufficient, and OSHA notification is not substitute. Question 4. In the modern context of HVACR installations requiring trenching in sandy soil, what is the primary reason that shielding systems, such as trench boxes, are preferred over sloping in some urban settings? A. Sloping is more expensive and labor-intensive. B. Trench boxes provide better oxygen levels in trenches. C. Urban space constraints limit room for sloping. D. Sloping increases the risk of electrical utility exposure. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Shielding systems like trench boxes are often used in confined urban settings where there is not enough space for wide-sloped trenches. OSHA 1926 Subpart P permits trench boxes as acceptable protective systems, especially where ground conditions or space limit other options. Question 5. When evaluating the merits of excavation protection, Is Patel, an HVACR technician, encounters a trench with a cross-trench water pipe exposed and unsupported. The trench is 6 feet deep in clay soil. A trench box is used but does not extend below the pipe. What is the most appropriate next step? A. Continue work since the trench box is in place above the pipe. B. Stop work and support the exposed pipe to prevent collapse. C. Remove the trench box and slope the walls instead. D. Dig around the pipe to relieve pressure and avoid collapse. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 I requires support for adjacent structures, including utilities. Unsupported pipes can shift and cause trench collapse. The trench box does not protect below the pipe, and digging around it can worsen instability. Work must pause until the utility is properly supported. Question 6. Considering the evidence, what atmospheric testing is required before workers enter a trench deeper than 4 feet where hazardous atmospheres are suspected, such as near landfalls or sewer lines? A. Only test for oxygen levels if it's near landfill. B. Test for flammable gases, toxic substances and oxygen content. C. No testing is required unless workers feel dizzy or report odors. D. Test only for carbon monoxide if exhaust equipment is nearby. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 G mandates atmospheric testing for oxygen deficiency, flammable gases, and toxic contaminants when hazardous atmospheres are suspected. This ensures that workers are not exposed to asphyxiants or toxic conditions in confined trench environments. Question 7. As illustrated by a trench collapse incident Mr. Thompson was working in a 10-foot deep trench without protective systems when the walls caved in. Investigation revealed he was not designated as a competent person. Which of the following defines the legal role of a competent person on excavation sites? A. Foreman with over 10 years of HVACR experience. B. Any supervisor trained in trench shielding systems. C. Someone capable of identifying hazards and authorized to correct them. D. OSHA certified safety officer assigned to the site. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. A competent person, as per OSHA 1926.650 B, is someone capable of identifying hazards in surroundings and authorized to take prompt corrective measures. Experience alone does not suffice without authority and hazard recognition training. Formal OSHA certification is not required, but training is. Question 8. The prevailing attitude toward trenching operations is that heavy equipment should always be used cautiously. Mr. Lee operates an excavator adjacent to an open trench to backfill refrigerant lines. The trench is 8 feet deep and 3 feet wide. What is the primary risk of placing the excavator too close to the trench edge? A. Hydraulic fluid from the excavator could leak into the trench. B. The excavator may fall in if improperly parked. C. The weight could cause surcharge and trench collapse. D. Engine noise may prevent workers from hearing warnings. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 J2 warns that equipment must be kept away from trench edges to prevent surcharge loading, which can cause wall collapse. Surcharge refers to excess load near the trench edge that exceeds soil strength. Leakage or noise are secondary risks but not primary collapse causes. Question 9. To illustrate this point, a trench collapse occurred where the site had warning signs but no trench protection. Workers were told not to enter, but one entered to retrieve tools and became trapped. What critical OSHA principle was violated? A. Workers should never enter any trench deeper than 2 feet. B. Workers must be trained to use oxygen monitors. C. All workers must be protected regardless of verbal warnings. D. Trenches must always have plywood barriers installed. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.652A requires protective systems in trenches over 5 feet deep. Verbal warnings or signs are not substitutes. Workers must be physically protected by slope insuring or shielding. The employer is responsible even if workers disregard instructions. Question 10. In response to a sudden storm, is new and halted trenching operations on a 9-foot deep HVACR duct installation site. After 3 hours, rain stopped and she was pressured to resume work. Water had accumulated in the trench and sidewalls were visibly deteriorated. What should she do before work continues? A. Pump water out and use shovels to test wall firmness. B. Have a competent person re-evaluate trench stability. C. Resume work with reduced crew size to minimize weight. D. Lay wood planks across the trench for safer access. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1926.650 on K1 mandates that a competent person inspect trenches after weather events. Deteriorated trench walls and water accumulation greatly increase collapse risk. Only a competent person can determine whether it's safe to re-enter. Testing soil with shovel is insufficient. Question 11. In a scenario involving HVACR trenching near a retaining wall, Mr. Wallace is preparing to excavate a 7-foot deep trench within 2 feet of the wall. No protective systems are in place for the wall. Which of the following is required before trenching begins? A. Obtain permission from a local utility authority. B. Install a benching system to widen the trench. C. Support or underpin the retaining wall to prevent collapse. D. Use a vibrating compactor to test soil resistance. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.650 on I1 requires that adjacent structures, such as retaining walls, be supported or underpinned when excavation work could undermine their stability. Failing to protect them can result in collapse, endangering both workers and structures. Question 12. During a high-volume HVAC project, Mr. Cheng supervises work involving multiple trenches. He observes spoil piles placed directly on the edge of a 6-foot deep trench. What action must be taken immediately? A. Spread spoil piles evenly inside the trench. B. Move spoil piles at least 2 feet back from the edge. C. Add trench boxes to support the spoil weight. D. Place warning tape around the piles. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1926.650 on J2 requires that spoil piles be kept at least 2 feet from trench edges to prevent soil from rolling back in and increasing trench collapse risks. Trenches must be protected from surcharge loads, including spoil weight. Question 13. A new hire is tasked with trench work for HVAC conduit. The trench is 9 feet deep and has vertical sides. The supervisor claims it's safe because it will only take 10 minutes. What is the correct protocol? A. Allow brief entry without protective systems. B. Ensure ladder is available but proceed. C. Provide shielding or sloping before entry. D. Reduce trench depth to eliminate risk. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.652.81 states no worker may enter a trench deeper than 5 feet without adequate protection, regardless of time. Collapses can occur instantly. Protective systems like shielding or sloping must always be in place. Question 14. Following an excavation accident, an OSHA inspector determines that the trench collapse occurred due to vibrations from a nearby generator placed next to the trench edge. What OSHA principle was violated? A. The trench should have had a water pump to remove groundwater. B. All trenches require gas monitors when using generators. C. Vibrating equipment should not be operated near trench edges. D. OSHA requires fencing around all equipment on trench sites. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.650 on J2 includes the requirement that mobile and vibrating equipment not be operated near trench edges due to risk of soil destabilization and collapse. Vibrations from generators, compactors, and vehicles contribute to trench failure. Question 15. As part of a safety audit, a trench 13 feet deep in silty soil was inspected. It had trench boxes installed, but the boxes were 10 feet long in a 30-foot trench, leaving open sections. What is the most critical hazard? A. Trench box length is insufficient to protect the entire work area. B. Boxes are too long and difficult to reposition. C. Workers have limited egress options. D. The trench may flood without additional sump pumps. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. OSHA 1926.652b requires protection for all areas where workers may be present. Trench boxes must span the full length of the work zone, or workers must not be exposed in unprotected sections. Partial coverage is a serious violation. Question 16. While trenching near a chemical plant, Mr. Ochoa is alerted to a strong odor and dizziness among crew members working 6 feet below grade. The trench was not tested before entry. What should he have done prior to starting it? Install A confined space permit board. B. Provide level BPP to all workers. C. Conduct atmospheric testing for hazardous gases. D. Request an industrial hygienist to inspect the site. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 G1 mandates atmospheric testing when hazardous atmospheres are suspected. Near chemical plants, this is essential. Testing for oxygen deficiency, toxic vapors, and flammable gases must be completed before entry. Question 17. Is Jordan manages a trenching operation for an HVACR chiller pipe project. Workers are in a 12-foot deep trench when rain begins. She immediately evacuates the trench. Why is this the correct action? A. OSHA prohibits work in trenches during any rain. B. Water can quickly erode trench walls and trigger collapse. C. Rain introduces cold stress and respiratory hazards. D. Trench ladders lose traction and become trip hazards. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 requires inspections after any event that could increase hazards, including whether rain can saturate soil and cause rapid trench wall failure. Evacuation is required until a competent person re-evaluates the trench. Question 18. While installing refrigerant lines, a crew uses a portable ladder in a 10-foot trench. The ladder extends 1.5 feet above the trench edge and is 30 feet from the nearest worker. Which two OSHA violations apply? A. Ladder angle and trench width. B. Ladder height and worker travel distance. C. Ladder location and trench signage. D. Ladder material and trench depth. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 C2 requires ladders to extend at least 3 feet above trench edges and be within 25 feet of worker travel. This setup violates both criteria. Improper access increases the risk of injury during emergencies. Question 19. In a project involving HVACR upgrades, excavation is performed using a backhoe. A worker is instructed to enter the trench to guide a conduit placement while the backhoe operates overhead. What OSHA rule is being violated? A. Workers must maintain 15 feet from any machinery. B. Only licensed electricians can work in trenches. C. Workers cannot be under suspended loads. D. Trench depth must not exceed 8 feet with backhoes nearby. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 prohibits workers from being beneath loads handled by lifting or digging equipment. Even momentary presence under suspended loads is considered a serious violation and presents immediate danger to life. Question 20. An HVACR excavation crew is setting up for a 10-foot trenching granular type beach soil. The supervisor opts for a sloping system but uses a 1 slope ratio. What is the OSHA compliant maximum allowable slope for this type of soil? A. 0.75, 1B 1.5, 1C 1, 1D 0.51. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926 subpart P. Appendix B specifies that type B soil requires a maximum allowable slope of 145 degrees using a steeper slope. G 0.51 may be non-compliant. Type allows 3 foot 1 and type C requires 1.5. Question 21. During a routine excavation inspection, Singh observes that a trench 11 feet deep has been sloped according to type C soil requirements. However, water has pooled at the bottom overnight. What should be the first corrective action? A. Pump out the water and resume work immediately. B. Enter the trench only with full protection. C. Remove standing water and re-evaluate stability. D. Install a trench box over the water. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 H prohibits water accumulation unless proper precautions are taken. Water weakens trench walls, especially in type C soils. It must be removed and a competent person must reassess the trench before resuming work. Question 22. Illustrated by Ramirez's crew installing HVACR ducting underground. The trench is 6 feet deep and in clay soil. Workers must enter the trench to place ductwork. No protective system is used, citing soil stability. What is the violation? A. Trench ladders are not secured. B. Clay soil qualifies as type and needs no protection. C. All trenches over 5 feet deep require a protective system. D. The trench does not require a competent person. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.652.81 mandates protective systems for trenches over 5 feet deep unless a competent person determines no potential for cave-in, which is rare. Clay may degrade and does not exempt the requirement. Question 23. In a confined HVACR excavation, Easterly notices a strong sulfur-like odor and sees rust forming on steel pipes. No atmospheric testing was performed. What should this indicate? A. The trench is too deep for manual work. B. Signs of hydrogen sulfide gas. Exit and test immediately. C. Soil conditions are poor and require benching. D. The area may be contaminated by refrigerants. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Hydrogen sulfide HS often smells like rotten eggs and causes metal corrosion. OSHA 1926.651 G requires testing where hazardous atmospheres are suspected. Workers must evacuate and not re-enter until safe levels are confirmed. Question 24. In light of recent developments, Cohen notices her excavation crew using aluminum hydraulic shores for a trench with visible underground electrical conduits. What is the greatest safety concern? A. Risk of trench wall collapse due to shallow shoring. B. Incorrect shoring pressure for type B soil. C. Aluminum conducts electricity, posing electrocution hazard. D. Shores should only be used with trench boxes. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 F warns that metallic supports near energized systems can create electrocution risks. Aluminum is highly conductive and its proximity to live utilities is extremely dangerous. Use non-conductive shoring or denergize. Question 25. From a practical standpoint, what should be the first step before any HVACR trenching work begins on a commercial property with a history of undocumented renovations? A. Begin soil classification. B. Call 811 to locate utilities. C. Notify OSHA of excavation work. D. Create a confined space permit plan. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 B. In utility laws mandate contacting 811 before digging to identify and mark utilities. Unmarked underground services are a major hazard. Work must not begin until all utilities are confirmed and marked. Question 26. During the process of excavating for a chilled water line, Mr. Dorsey discovers the excavation is within 4 feet of a heavy concrete pad supporting HVAC equipment. What should be done? A. Proceed only if the equipment isn't vibrating. B. Support the slab with engineered shoring before digging further. C. Use hand tools near the pad to avoid damage. D. Add spoil piles to the trench edge to balance weight. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 I1 requires support for adjacent structures that may be affected by excavation. Heavy equipment foundations can collapse into trenches if not underpinned or braced by engineered systems. Question 27. Several experts suggest that trench inspections must occur after range shifts or hazard triggers. Mr. Boone claims he inspected his trench at the start of the day, which OSHA rule clarifies inspection frequency. A. Inspections must be every 12 hours. B. Only required after worker complaints. C. Required at the start of each shift and after any hazard event. D. Weekly inspections suffice unless soil changes. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 K1 requires inspections by a competent person daily and is needed after events such as rain, vibrations, or other changes. A morning check is not sufficient if new risks emerge during the shift. Question 20. Contrary to popular belief, backfilling A trench does not eliminate the need for egress protection during HVACR duct burial. Which of the following is still required? A. Sloping on both ends. B. Exit ladders every 25 feet of lateral travel. C. Safety lines tied to mechanical winches. D. Warning tape along the trench edge. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1926.651 C2 requires that ladders or ramps be placed no more than 25 feet from any worker for trenches 4 feet or deeper. This applies during all stages of work, including backfilling, until the trench is fully closed. Question 29. With respect to excavation noise, is to trans crews working near busy roadway and struggles to hear overhead spotters during trench work. Which safety procedure is most appropriate? A. Use visual signals and signage to guide excavation. B. Assign safety monitor to record noise exposure. C. Require double hearing protection. D. Increase spotter volume with megaphones. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. In high noise environments, OSHA recommends substituting verbal communication with visual methods. E.g. flags, signs, hand signals to ensure instructions are understood. This aligns with 29 CFR 1926.201 and 1926.651 D. Question 30. The underlying principle of soil mechanics requires understanding layered trench walls. If is to vow, there's fines. The trench wall with hard clay over soft sand. What must be assumed for safety? A. Classify trenches type. Due to clay. B. Classify by the least stable soil type. C. Use benched walls only in clay areas. D. Reinforce only the sandy section. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1926 Subpart P, Appendix A, states layered soils must be classified according to the weakest layer. Soft sand is typically type C, so the whole trench must be treated accordingly regardless of better material above.